Well, good evening. This is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening, and please forgive me for not making a video for quite a while when the news feed is just going absolutely wild. But we have been inundated by two fairly large snowstorms that have just come through, so I've been up to my eyeballs in snow. But this is the most incredible piece of news from England. This is breaking news today. Boris Johnson is basically rescinding every COVID restriction that has been in place for the last 2 years. In other words, England is completely reopening. And I think this is the first major acknowledgement that this has been an absolute cock-up, and they are walking this narrative backwards at a rate of knots. Denmark came out recently and said they got it all wrong, that they shouldn't have had any of the lockdowns, none of the protocols have worked.
And here we are, extra bladette. We failed. This is a Twitter posting. One of Denmark's largest newspapers issued an official apology for its journalistic failure during a COVID of parroting official government messages without question, paging the New York Times. So there they go. The largest newspapers saying that they failed to question whether you died of COVID or whether you died with COVID. I mean, they didn't even bother to check that out. All of these newspapers, they're all walking backwards now. Isn't that funny?
Okay, we're now on 2 shots and 2 boosters, and it's not working. I mean, these things have been so ineffective, it is unbelievable. Israel, Tel Aviv, doctor came out and said, you know, we've lost. It's endemic. It's going to be part of us. We've got to get over this. We've lost whatever's going on.
From Zero Hedge, doomed to fail. Top immunologist blasts global COVID response driven by false propaganda. Fancy that. Professor Ehud Kimron, head of the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Tel Aviv University, these are pretty, they're up there guys. And one of the leading Israeli immunologist has written an open letter sharply criticizing Israel and indeed global management of the CV pandemic. So are you telling me that this is fake news? This is false information, that this guy is some kind of conspiracy theorist? He is the head of the Department of Microbiology and Immunology at Tel Aviv University. There you go.
Absolutely insane. And now the stats coming out in New Zealand, I'm going to link the video below because it's quite long. Peak Prosperity, Chris Martenson. The stats coming out in New Zealand are unbelievable because, again, as New Zealand, like Israel, like Gibraltar, are one of these isolated countries that have a large number of vaccinated population who are just being overwhelmed. And I'm going to show you just a quick chart from Ontario here. And they're jumping up and down about all of these cases. And there you go. This is from their own website. Look at this. The largest proportion of people in the hospital are the vaccinated. Fancy that. Unbelievable. Yes, I think this is an incredible situation. And I think we've been vindicated. But we mustn't give up the battle. We must continue to maintain our stance that this narrative has to disappear. It is absolutely garbage. Okay, it's been proved now over and over again. 700 days. I was talking to someone the other day. It was 2 weeks to crush the curve. 700 days into it. Nothing has been done with long-term care facilities, which was the cause of the problem in the first place, which because they've been, chronically underfunded for years. They've known this is a problem. Just about all of the new cases are in the long-term care facilities and nursing homes and so on and so forth, and those people are protected. They're already isolated. They can be quarantined and isolated completely. Okay, so why are you shutting down the rest of the business, the public, everything? I mean, it's just, the mind boggles. And I think they're realizing that this is all going to fall apart, and all of a sudden now these cowards are running for the exits. because they know who's going to get blamed. We have an election year coming up in Ontario, and Doug Ford is going to have to answer questions, as will all of his MPs. And in fact, just recently, the Minister for Long-Term Care resigned. Oh my God. You know why he resigned? Because he knows the guillotine's coming. These people are going to go to the trials for crimes against humanity. It's been the last 2 years has been absolutely unbelievable. But as I say, we're seeing more and more evidence that the narrative is just absolutely falling apart, and good riddance. I will face any other problem that's been caused by supply chains, by weather. These things I can deal with, but this kind of undermining is just what Justin Trudeau the other day came out and he said that people who have not taken the inoculation, are unscientific, misogynistic, quite often racist. Should we tolerate them? What, are you kidding me? This is inciting hatred against a visible minority. The very thing he's just supposed to stand against. Anyway, it turns out there was a letter was circulated saying exactly this. We have laws against this. You can't. If you did that to another race, you would be hung by your toenails immediately. But for him, in that position, with his education, he knew exactly what he was saying. Anyway, they got 10,000 letters, the Attorney General. Now, I know he may be a Liberal Attorney General, but 10,000 letters is a lot of letters for people to take the time to send those in. And I don't know what the email count was, but yes, there is definitely a movement afoot, and we need to keep up the push. And you don't have to fight too hard. The facts are out there. You just have to start going to the facts, learning some of the things that are being said in the video that I'm going to list below with Peak Prosperity. Chris Martenson is great. He is absolutely fantastic. He's a PhD. What can I say? His research is impeccable. Absolutely impeccable. So definitely worth watching, and thank God these people are coming to the fore. Joe Rogan, his interviews with Dr. Robert Malone and Dr. Peter McCulloch, they got like about 45 million views each, and that's just on his particular podcast. We're not talking about all the re-uploads and the shares and so on and so forth. That's a large amount of people. That's over 100 million people watched that podcast. And when you see those podcasts and you see the people speaking, you just know that they are the real deal, that they are telling the truth, that they are genuine. And that's one of the things that we sorely lack in our society, in our leadership today, is a sense of being genuine and transparent. Totally lacking. Anyway, we'll just go over this article here, quick read, and then I'll come back and do a quick wrap up. Okie dokie, here we go.
So this from the Sun, and you might say, oh, that old rag. And I might agree with you in some instances, but in this case, the Sun is probably the number one top read newspaper, certainly by the working people in England. So it's a very widely read paper. So to have this in there. So here we go. Boris Johnson this afternoon announced he's scrapping almost all COVID restrictions in a huge boost to millions of Brits. The PM said he's binning all of the Plan B measures which were introduced last month to help fight off the Omicron wave. Health Secretary Sajid Javid is currently addressing the nation at a press conference to formally announce the news that guidance to work from home where possible has been immediately withdrawn. That means people can head back to the office from tomorrow morning. Inoculation passports used by people to prove their inoculation status or a negative test to enter large venues will also go from midnight next Wednesday. And in a surprise move, the PM also declared wearing masks in public spaces like trains, buses and shops will fall away at the same time. And now you see how they're going to try and wheedle their way out of this. Triumphant Mr. Johnson hailed the success of the booster campaign that has allowed him to rip up nearly all remaining curbs. Volunteers with the Sun's Jabs Army have been working heroically to help turbocharge the rollout. Mr. Johnson also felt vindicated for resisting doomster calls to impose tougher measures as Omicron surged over Christmas. The PM told MPs many nations across Europe have endured further winter lockdowns. While we must continue to remain cautious, the data are showing that time and again this government got the toughest decisions right. Yeah, right. I don't think you're quite up on that, but this is quite a stunning retraction and also a pretty damning indictment. I mean, the damage that has been caused by these lockdowns will literally take decades for the countries around the world to recover from, and some of them may never recover from the damage done by the ignorance and willful stupidity of these people when they were being told, and they just shut down that narrative, they just shut down that conversation. They were being told from many, many, many experts like Dr. Peter McCulloch, okay, like Dr. Robert Malone. These are heads, these are the leading experts in their fields who were shut down because they contradicted the narrative. Okay, well, history will tell this tale, and it will be interesting to see what happens now.
So that's it, my friends. The narrative has crumbled. It's unbelievable. I have to say I'm only cautiously optimistic because, you know, I've seen turnarounds before, and I don't know whether this is trying to lull us into a false sense of security, you know, because we're fighting a psychological war, and this could be a psychological gambit to get you to rest, to get to step back, and then boom, you know, something else happens. But I don't think so, because we've been 700 days. I think people can see, you know, I was just thinking the other day, you know, we really started the rollout of the vaccines just prior to the previous American election. It was Trump's final year, and they were just starting to roll out the vaccines big time. Okay, that was in November, we'll say August 2020. That means the inoculations have only been rolled out for a little over a year, and I said you've got 2 shots and 2 boosters. Are you kidding me? You know, if you can't see that it's just not working, and you should have just relied on your own immune system, and of course the vax tax will not work, that will not fly. What about all the obese people? This is one of the number 1 comorbidities named in the CV outbreak, and it's an epidemic. And this is one of the few things, you know, it's like alcoholism and tobacco addiction, any kind of addiction, this can be controlled. This is a self-inflicted wound here, and the burden is carried by all of the taxpayers. So when are you going to tax those people? So, and I'm sure they say, well, we put tax on tobacco. I don't think the tax on tobacco nearly covers treating someone with a case of lung cancer that they pay over a lifetime. Okay, the cost of that kind of treatment is absolutely enormous, and it clogs up the system. So it's not going to fly. You know, you have to justify that before you can get a vax tax through. This is, I believe, an idle threat. So I don't think I'm going to worry about any of this, but I am going to keep persisting with these videos. There's other stuff going on, and we have to keep up our narrative to counter their narrative, because I think there will still be echoes. There will still be echoes of this for years to come, because they have to wiggle out of this. And I hope we don't allow them to wiggle out of this and get re-elected. If we re-elect these people, God help us, we deserve everything we get. Okie dokie, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. See ya. Bye.